Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me for another royal video. So I went into town today. I got my new wintry nails. This is called Spicy Plum. A nice little bit of, not quite festive yet, but it's that autumnal sort of colour. And whilst I was out in town, I hunted down the big issue seller and I got myself, it's slightly rained on, but I got myself a copy of the big issue featuring the King for his birthday. This will then be put alongside the one that I have of the Queen and a street cat named Bob, who sadly neither of them are actually with us any longer. Which does, of course, both things, the King and the fact the Queen is no longer here, bring me to this particular storyline. Because of course, not that it wasn't enough with Harry and Meghan playing this telephone tag game of did they call the King? As you know from the last video I did, I don't happen to believe that a phone call did take place because a week before their spokesperson said that they have absolutely no contact whatsoever with the royal family. So I find it a bit weird. A week later, maybe Charles was having a soft moment and he of course just had a wonderful family phone call with his son, with his daughter-in-law, with his grandchildren. I'm sorry, I find it too hard to swallow, that one. But if it does turn out that it was in fact true, I can be wrong, of course. Lots of media outlets are still reporting that it did happen. What are the chances that Omid Scobie's book Endgame, yet again attacking the royal family, just gets leaked magically? That certain excerpts have been revealed, of course painting Harry and Meghan as the eternal victims, the evil royal family, the cruel King Charles, the evil and cold, power-hungry Prince William, and, well, I haven't even gone into reading too much about what he's going to say about Catherine, but you know they will be the targets. Now, the whole thing I did say, I'm not reading it, I'm not buying it, I'm really not, I am standing by that. But this story that has come out, it triggered me because it's all to do with the Queen. What actually happened in the run-up to the Queen's death and the few days that followed with Harry and Meghan heavily involved with a lot of headlines. And I remember it because I lived through it every day. As those of you that followed me then, you know I did lots of coverage on it. We also have Tom Bower's book, which came out, which I will be quoting. I'm just trying to reach for it. I know it's here somewhere. Yes, Tom Bower's book. The reason why I will reference Tom Bower's book is because he heavily researches everything that he puts into print, and Harry and Meghan have not sued him, much like Valentine Lowe with Courtiers, which has backfired on Harry and Meghan because, much like them being loved up and holding hands, people notice when they're not loved up and not holding hands. The fact that they sue everyone or threaten people legally at the drop of the hat over the most ridiculous slights. The fact that they have not, however, threatened Tom Bower with the things that he put in his book leads me to believe that it is because it's true. Now, we know anything to do with finding freedom, Omid Scobie, it's always this woe is me. Harry and Meghan are somehow victims. We also know that Omid doesn't have a lot of credibility after finding freedom, got pulled apart. Even Harry has turned around and said some things that he put in the book were not, in fact, accurate, which is ridiculous because, as we now know, Harry and Meghan were heavily involved in finding freedom. That in court paperwork, it got revealed that Meghan didn't just agree with certain things. Through staff, she actually sent several chapters, lots of information. So she had her fingerprints well and truly over everything that was said. So, of course, that means that Harry and Meghan must have signed off on the end product. The fact we've got an email here, which I will draw back to your attention for those of you that maybe this is the first time you've seen it. And it is Harry talking about their involvement with Finding Freedom, saying, we have to make it look like we've got nothing to do with it. So it's going to be very hard for people to believe that Harry and Meghan are not heavily involved with Endgame. Now, Endgame, we knew it was going to happen when the Queen died. And we also know that Omid was getting inside information of people that were there, i.e. Harry and Meghan, all through their team. Omid had a few exclusives. There was this photograph that was released. Now, I know so many people said it was photoshopped. It looks photoshopped, I'll give you that, it does. How did Meghan know where the camera is? As someone once said, Meghan can find someone's lost camera up in the moors. This woman has an unbelievable ability, like a bat sonar, to track down where the camera is. But more importantly, they were coming down the stairs knowing that window, knowing that Charles was there, and I think my gut feeling is telling me that it was set up. They knew that the paparazzi lens was there. Now, the reason why I say it's not photoshopped is because it's on Getty Images. Getty Images has a clause. This is contractual. I know this because a friend's partner works for Getty, or at least freelance, and none of their images can be photoshopped. They are very, very strict on it. So the fact that you can buy that particular photograph with the reference tells me that it is genuine, which makes it a little bit worse and a hell of a lot more creepy of Meghan with those eyes. I believe that members of the royal family even had their suspicions that Harry and Meghan were leaking directly to Omid, because I've always believed that there was a red herring planted, and that was when Omid had an exclusive. He was being interviewed on TV, and he said, this was his exclusive, that the Queen's body would be transported by the royal train from Balmoral down to London. Now, that is only something that would have been discussed or perhaps fed to Harry, obviously in the aftermath of him eventually getting into Balmoral. Bearing in mind, he was the first one to leave as well. I think that he was like, right, what's happening? And then they just planted a little seed to see if it went back to Omid. And quite clearly, it did make its way back to Omid's ears pretty sharpish. It's very obvious that even the most intimate details, nothing was sacred. So a lot of the stuff to do with this is all to do with Harry, how he was treated, how Harry was made to feel, how Meghan was made to feel when the Queen died, okay? So we saw this at the time, but Omid is really pushing this one home. Harry was left alone at the Queen's passing. Harry was crushed because his relationship with his grandmother meant everything. Well, if it meant everything, maybe he should have spent some time with her rather than sitting in Montecito trying to destroy everything that she and her husband, Prince Philip, had built up. What about the Queen's Commonwealth legacy? They were saying it was like the Empire 2.0. They were stirring up all sorts of things to do with colonialism. This is before Netflix, where they got those historians involved. This was when Harry and Meghan had been given the position of president, and the Queen had even created the position of vice president of the Queen's Commonwealth Trust for Meghan, and then they try and stir it up with the race baiting. That's certainly a lovely way to thank the Queen for everything that she did for them. But back to this particular subject, Harry and Meghan, the moment that they got married, she fell pregnant with Archie in 2019, I believe that he was born. It started in 2019. Harry and Meghan decide that they're not spending their first Christmas with the Queen at Sandringham. Harry and Meghan decline invite the following summer to go to Balmoral. Harry and Meghan decline to spend another Christmas. This all happened basically the moment she got her ring on the finger. Harry and Meghan can't fly baby Archie to go up to see the Queen in Balmoral because he was too young, as they took their son by private jet. I believe it was to go to Elton John's place in France, and also a private birthday celebration for Meghan in Ibiza. The baby was fine to go there, but not to fly up to Scotland. Harry and Meghan were also invited to bring the children over for a big sleepover that the Queen always does every year for her grandchildren. This is when I believe that we often had the photographs taken of the Queen with all of her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren. Harry and Meghan declined. Harry and Meghan also declined, well, Harry definitely did, to come see the Queen mere days before she died. They were using Frogmore House, the home that was bestowed on them by the Queen as a wedding gift. They were using it. They were in the UK, but still didn't get on a plane to go see her. Now, Harry, through Omid, of course, as I said, there's no way that we are meant to believe that Harry and Meghan haven't even signed off on this or been involved in this. It's said through Omid that Harry was not aware of the Queen's ailing health in the final year to the lead up of her actually passing. I'm sorry, members of the public could see that the Queen never truly recovered from the loss of Prince Philip, possibly not helped by the fallout that Harry and Meghan did because of all of their allegations, most proven to be false, on Oprah. She started fading, she lost a lot of weight, she never really recovered after losing her rock of 70 years, which is to be expected. A lot of couples that have been together that length of time, it's more often than not that within a couple of years, the other one soon starts to fade. It's that whole sad but beautiful thing to do with lovebirds. You know, they don't survive without each other after spending so long together. I'm going to well myself up in a minute. Sorry. But Harry knew all of this, and you could see that the Queen was fading. Members of the public were concerned when we saw the Queen at the Jubilee. We knew that she had stopped riding her horse. Her mobility was being affected. The Queen wasn't going to attend certain services that we know that the Queen had never ever missed her entire life. It was quite clearly obvious to everyone the signs were there. She was 96 years old. Harry didn't even come over to Prince Philip's memorial a year after his death. Yes, he was there for the funeral, but this was the big gathering, a celebration to do with Prince Philip's life, where we had so many restrictions in place they couldn't truly honour him the way that they wanted to because of the COVID restrictions. He didn't come. Harry could have seen her mere days before her death. He didn't come. But now we've got this narrative that she meant more than anything to him. Well, is that why when he did finally go see her, he went there for a brief, I think it was 20 minutes, then went straight over to the Invictus Games and then gave an interview to Coda for one of the American Good Morning America TV programs. He gave private information about how he is the only person that the Queen truly trusts. Ironic, really, considering that Harry said in the same interview that the Queen needs to be protected from people around her, and it would seem that the only person she truly needed protecting from was in fact her grandson. In the 3 years that Harry and Meghan have done nothing but hurl threats and insults and said all these false statements and put allegations out there to try and turn the world against the royal family, the Queen, the rest of the grandchildren were actually spending time with the Queen. They were taking their children to go see her at Balmoral and Christmas at Sandringham. They were actually spending time with their very much beloved grandmother and building memories with her. They were there supporting her in the aftermath of losing her husband, Prince Philip. And what were Harry and Meghan doing? Oh, they were busy crying to Oprah about the fact that Meghan wasn't allowed her passport or an Instagram account. So one of the excerpts that's come out from Endgame is talking about the phone call when it all happened, when Harry was getting ready to go to the World Child Awards. He got a phone call. They don't say who it was from. I think it was mentioned at the time it was a member of staff that notified him he needed to get to Balmoral quickly. His father and Camilla were on their way. Princess Anne was already there. Omid says that Harry quickly texted William and asked him what him and Catherine were doing. William cruelly ignored him. Harry couldn't get hold of anyone. Harry knew he had to get there but had no way of knowing how he was going to get there. Okay, so this is Omid's version. Well, we're going to refer to Tom Bower's book. Harry had been told a private jet was ready for him to fly with Prince William to Aberdeen. Harry insisted that Meghan would be coming with him, and this was actually broadcasted to the media at 1:53 p.m. The private jet was due to leave Brize Norton at 1:30 p.m. At 1:53 p.m, this was leaked to the press that Meghan was indeed coming. Now, this then led to that very plane that also had Prince Andrew, Prince Edward and Sophie, then the Countess of Wessex, and Prince William waiting. The plane mysteriously sat there for an hour and then Prince William instructed the plane to leave. This was confirmed in Tom Bower's book. Again, I say this is what I believe, and this actually has been proved with the timings with the airport. The plane was due to leave, mysteriously sat on the tarmac for an hour. Now, Omid is trying to say that Prince William didn't wait for him, ignored him, and then just instructed the plane to leave. Where, of course, in Tom Bower's book, which is a lot more believable, and as I said, the timings work out, Harry then demanded that Meghan should go. And it was the king that got involved and spoke to his son and said, Meghan is not welcome. The ins and outs of it are obviously sketchy, and I'm sure that Harry's got his very own version of events. But it did lead, in Harry's own words in Spare, to say to his father, don't speak about my wife that way. Now, bearing in mind that Catherine did not go, it was said at the time that they thought it was best, again, Prince William and Catherine have to suffer to benefit Harry, to stop his temper tantrum. If Catherine doesn't go, it will make him back down with the fact that Meghan wasn't allowed to go. Incredibly sad for Catherine, because she was a lot closer to the Queen than obviously what Meghan was, and the fact that Harry had done nothing but try and hurt her in her final years. It must have been a very tough pill for Catherine to swallow. But that also being said, it was her children's first days at their new school, and she probably just wanted to stay at home with them regardless. Maybe it was a little bit of both. But of course, Harry is somehow a victim here, that they wouldn't let Meghan go. Meghan had had nothing to do with the Queen since she got those Duchess titles. She refused to go to Balmoral along with Harry. They never brought the children over, yet they took the Queen's private namesake. I don't care what anyone says, it's one of the most disgusting things they did. It was a private nickname that was used by the Queen's father, and then Prince Philip adopted it, and I think it was another member of her family. I think it's Princess Margaret, actually. And obviously her father's gone, Princess Margaret is gone, and it was just Prince Philip that referred to her as his Lilibet. It comes from when she was a little girl and she could not, like most little children can't, pronounce her name properly. So she couldn't say Elizabeth, so she said Lilibet. Deeply personal. They did not tell the Queen they were calling her Lilibet. They said to the Queen they were going to name her after her. So that could be Lizzie, it could have been Elizabeth. There's lots of different names that they could have used. Even Lily, which they did initially say that's what they wanted their daughter to be known by. They did that, and it was cruel because the Queen had said after Philip she didn't want to hear it because it meant so much to her. That might sound like such a sweet gesture, but we know it was not sweet. It was quite a narcissistic, cruel thing to do. It's a way of, well, you can't challenge it. You wouldn't let us have the word royal, so we'll take that. And you can see the venom behind it. But regardless of that, the fact that Omid is trying to say that Harry was told he needed to get there, no one waited for him, no one called him on the phone, it's quite clearly obvious that Harry said in spare his own words that he had an argument with his father about Meghan being allowed to go. And in the end, he got a private jet without her later in the evening. Now, it's also said that Harry was the last to know. Harry was the one that was last to get there. He was also the first to leave. But what Harry seems to forget, and what other people seem to forget, Prince Edward, Prince Andrew, the King, and then of course Princess Anne were her children. She was their mother. They have absolute priority. Them being there goes first. Then, of course, there's 8 other grandchildren. You have Sarah and Peter, then you have William and Harry. So Harry is the 4th in age. Not that that should really matter, but you get what I'm saying. Then you have Beatrice and Eugenie, and then lastly, you have Louise and then James. Forgive me for not using their full titles. It would be too much of a mouthful. And as you can tell, I'm slightly ranty. Harry, in the days of the Queen passing, we had stories of how Harry and Meghan were actually going to stage their own walkabout in Windsor. That's why Catherine and William were involved and joined them to stop them from doing that, to make it a joint effort. Again, I totally believe it. That's why Meghan looked like a rabbit caught in the headlights for most of it. She was not expecting that. Then you have Harry that moaned about his uniform. He wanted to wear his uniform. I don't care what people say. The royal family were not doing this to hurt him. He had quit working for the royal family, which meant his honorary positions through the armed forces were gone. He'd quit them. The uniform had been returned. Members of the armed forces that leave, whether they retire, they're discharged, whatever, they wear their medals. They do not wear their uniform when they are no longer in service. That wasn't good enough, of course. Wirrak and Omid Scobie got the exclusive here again. It was known that Harry, although he was graciously allowed to wear his uniform, it still wasn't good enough. The cipher had been taken. The initials ER had been removed. Again, the royal family did this to spite Harry. The cipher on their uniforms represents them being in service to the monarch. Did Harry look like he'd spent the last 3 years in service to the monarch? No, he had not. He was doing everything he could to obviously upset and hurt the reigning monarch, pretty much like he's doing now. The fact that he was even allowed to wear that uniform, I think, just shows the level of Harry always being allowed to get his own way. And of course, if that's what it took to make Harry stop, or what they thought that it would, they were sorely very mistaken. It's hardly not surprising, with all of the dramatics that were caused from the walkabout, Harry complaining about the uniform, all of these little things that were coming out. Harry was ignored, Harry didn't get a phone call, Harry was the last to find out. Is it any wonder that Mike Tyndall looked like he wanted to knock his block off when they were paying respects? Nothing is sacred when it comes to Harry and Meghan, even at this awful time for that entire family, when they are in absolute despair, grief, in mourning the loss of their grandmother, their great-grandmother, their mother, their cousin, all of the people that came and paid their respects to the Queen. Harry and Meghan somehow managed to make it all about them. They made sure headlines every single day was all to do with how Harry and Meghan were being treated. And now we've got the book to come out not long after the year's anniversary of the Queen's passing, the King's birthday, to remind us all. But the difference is, much like Finding Freedom, and we've now found out that Harry and Meghan had their fingerprints all over it, this book is going to backfire on them. Because rather than it showing a side to poor Harry and Meghan, people have had enough of them. And if anything, all this does is it's going to remind people, or in fact people that weren't aware of everything that was going on, of the awful behaviour that they exhibited during those few days of the Queen passing. They were selfish, they made everything about them, and don't even get me started on that final dramatic one tear, left eye go moment. The black glove placed there just so the camera knew to scroll in on it. Meghan is famed for making one tear, left eye. In fact, in a lot of the photographs of Meghan crying, especially for Netflix footage, she's got her hands over her face, and sometimes you can see her smirking. She's got her hands over her eyes, so you can't see the tears. And then you get the despair. And then you get the one solemn tear. And it's always the left eye. So it's just drama when it comes to these two. But the fact that they were not united in grief, Meghan obviously not so much, because she quite clearly didn't care about the Queen. She only's ever cared about those titles. But Harry, if this moment could not bring the two brothers together, because the last time they went through anything like this was the loss of their mother, if that could not make Harry stop weaponizing everything and using even this deeply personal, emotional few weeks to attack his family, to make himself out to be a victim, then there is absolutely no hope for him whatsoever. The fact that we know Harry and Meghan had their fingerprints all over Finding Freedom, as I said, it's going to be very hard for people not to believe that, you know, Harry and Meghan weren't involved in this. So it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Why time this now? Why, if they're trying to put the story out there that Harry and Charles, their relationship is finally beginning to thaw, and there is potentially a chance of a father-son relationship slowly being rebuilt, why would Omid's book be leaked at this precise moment? Is it potentially because the phone call did in fact happen? I don't believe all of the other stuff about the children pre-recording a message. I mean, that's weird in itself. Surely you just get the children to say happy birthday granddad and to sing at the time. Why would you pre-record it? Also, the fact that all of the information like that got leaked to the press pretty much straight away makes me think it's been planted and it's not true. But just say that perhaps there was maybe a chance of father and son relationship beginning to thaw just slightly. Who do you think it would benefit to have Endgame suddenly leaked early, which of course would put paid to any sort of reconciliations left between Charles and Harry? The same as details of the phone call being leaked, intimate details that only the caller either end would know. So my question to you is, do you think that Harry is actually very heavily involved in Endgame, or do you think that there is someone in the background still pulling the strings and Harry is completely unaware of how much his relationship with his family is still deliberately being destroyed by someone that he potentially still lives in the same house with? So thoughts on that one, guys? Sorry it was a bit ranty, you know, it's just something that's still really, really upsetting to think that these two can even portray themselves as victims. The fact that Omid Scobie, the little vulture, is actually using the royal family's deeply personal moment, this one of the saddest days in their lives that was watched by the world. People need to remember this is a family. Yes, they're the royal family, but that was their grandmother, their great-grandmother, their mother. And the fact that Omid Scobie has used all of this, the same as Harry and Meghan have used every single intimate detail of every conversation the royal family have had to make money for him and for them. There's just something really gross about it. So anyway, guys, that's it for me on this one. I will be back with you soon. Take care for now. Bye.